You are getting ready to listen to the voice of Dr. Rhadi Ferguson, 2004 Olympian, four-time national judo champion, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, author, speaker, and coach.
Hey, what's going on, man? This is Dr. Rhadi Ferguson, and welcome to another edition of Coffee with Rhadi. There's been just a huge discussion in the realm of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as it relates to coaching, teaching, and education. And I see that this particular conversation is now in vogue. And it's mind-blowing to me because the people who are having the conversation they remind me of brand new Christians who are on fire for Christ. And they're very loud, and they are very they're very resolute in their positioning, but they don't really have a lot of experience. There are some things that are learned through practice, and there are some things that are discovered through theory. And why I do believe in understanding theory and the theoretical approach as it applies to the things that we do in practice. At the end of the day, as Dr. Chris Brown and I talked about last night, I'm a pragmatist, and I'm concerned with doing what's practical, what I found useful, and what I've done over the years. And I'm willing to look at the research, but the research in and of itself is cyclical, because here's what a lot of people don't understand when it comes to, I don't care if you call it ECO or the CLA approach, constraints-led approach. The bottom line is these things are called the inquiry-based learning. That's what it's been called for years, and it's been done through different disciplines over and over and over again. And now, because Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is new, everybody's doing it in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And the reason why I'm doing this particular podcast is because I want individuals to understand that there's more than one way to skin a cat. The best way is the way that works best for your clientele. And when it comes to the acquisition of skill and the acquisition of expertise, those two things are different. And when it comes to the acquisition of expertise, the best model to use is what we would call a hybrid model. And somebody asked me, what is a hybrid model? I said, well, a hybrid model is when you take two or more things and you put them together and you utilize the best of each modality, usually two things. But I want to have a talk today to provide you just with some context. I think a lot of people really need this understanding. I want to talk about direct instruction, all right, versus the inquiry-based learning model in terms of judo and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, more specifically Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and create a parallel within this discussion of the same arguments that have already happened in the realms of mathematics, language arts, and foreign language education. All right. So I want to talk about the andragogical and pedagogical debates across the disciplines. I think that's important to understand. Now, when it comes to the martial arts of judo and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, these two things are deeply rooted in tradition. Judo having a more long-standing tradition than Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, unless you just accept, like I do, that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is judo. Yet, okay, they have evolved through varying instructional methods. What I really enjoy about judo is judo kind of covers everything. If you look at the four parts of a judo throw, or the four parts of a judo move, when you look at kumikata, kazushi, sakuri, and kake, every portion of the training process in judo handles all those things. Like, even though you think that the static training is bad, but the static training is working on the identification of the kazushi. It's also working on the sakuri, the entry point. The kazushi being the off balancing and the sakuri being the entry point. Then the throws that we do on the crash pad that are on the mat, they're working on the kake, on the final execution of the throw and how those things are done. Then we have transition drills when we throw and then transition into the newaza. And then we have constraints led approaches when it comes to grip fighting with ashiwaza, and then grip fighting focusing randori, or randori with no grip fighting. Like all these things are already inside of the way that judo is taught. I'm not saying that judo in and of itself is a perfect sport, but the art in and of itself is a perfect art. It's been through this refinement process that I'm going to talk about. So one of the most debated educational or teaching and learning topics among coaches and practitioners right now is this direct instruction model and the inquiry-based learning model, what they call the eco approach or the CLA approach, whatever you want to call it. I go with whatever they call it, but it is an inquiry-based learning model. And what a lot of people don't realize is that these debates are not new. Discussions about structured versus exploratory learning have been happening for decades in the realm of education, mathematics, language arts, foreign language acquisition. And judo has already gone through these phases over the years, but BJJ is now just experiencing this evolution. Oh my gosh, it is painful for me because I feel like I'm back in talking about things that I was talking about during my master's program in education at Howard. Judo's already gone through these phases over the years. All right. BJJ is just now experiencing this evolution as its instructors and practitioners are increasingly examining the best ways to develop skill, to develop expertise, to develop tactical awareness, and to create long-term retention in terms of moves and nomenclature. All right. In each field, educators and practitioners struggle to find the optimal balance between structured, teacher-centered approaches and exploratory, student-centered approaches. Okay. So there's a structured, like the direct instruction model is more of a teacher-centered approach. The exploratory model, the inquiry-based model, is more of a student-centered approach. What I want to do in this particular Coffee with Rhadi today is explore and touch on these parallels and examine how each approach shapes skill acquisition and proficiency differently. Now, take a sip of coffee here and to take some notes. Can't fly blind on some of this. Okay. So when we look at direct instruction, we're talking about precision and replication. In Judo and BJJ, direct instruction comes from comes from the instructor. All right. It's more of a structured, teacher-centered approach where the coach explicitly demonstrates techniques and guides the students through repetition and drilling. All right. This uses the auditory approach. Okay. Where I'm speaking to you and you're listening to what I'm saying. The audio-visual approach where I'm speaking to you and showing you techniques. And then the tactile learning approach where I'm showing the technique on you or helping you move through the technique so that you can get it. This particular method of direct instruction is concerned with skill replication, efficiency. It provides immediate feedback, and it's concerned with skill automation. Now, when it comes to skill replication, the athletes develop consistent, reliable techniques through the repetition. And the efficiency is provided because it reduces trial and error by providing clear and precise movements. You get immediate feedback because coaches can instantly correct the errors, fostering technical accuracy. Now, when it comes to skill automation, the repeated drilling leads to subconscious execution under stress. Now, here are the drawbacks. Is a lack of adaptability. There's limited problem solving when faced with unfamiliar situations. There's reduced creativity because the instruction is very rigid, and it can provide an over-reliance on the coaches. Now, the parallel in mathematics is something called the procedural approach. In mathematics, direct instruction manifests itself through the procedural approach, where students are taught step-by-step algorithms to solve problems. Emphasis is placed on exact calculations, memorizing formulas and procedures, speed and accuracy, ensuring precision in arithmetic and algebraic manipulations, and then structured learning, a clear progression from foundational to advanced concepts, going from basic math to algebra, from algebra to calculus, from calculus to differential equations, from diffie to linear algebra. Like there's a clear progression. Now, here are some of the criticisms of procedural learning. They say it can create conceptual gaps. A student may master procedures without understanding underlying principles, which happens in math. There's limited flexibility. When struggles arise, and the problem deviates from the practice examples, sometimes students have problems and trouble. And it reduces problem-solving skills, which we see in mathematics when someone has a hardcore procedural approach and then they move to word problems and they have a lack of ability to adapt or apply the concepts creatively. All right? So what is the parallel in language to the direct instruction approach? The parallel in language arts is the phonics approach. Phonics instruction is a structured, rule-based method for teaching reading where students learn to decode words by associating letters with sounds. You have sound recognition, which are the building blocks of reading through sound patterns, reading fluency, developing accuracy in decoding written language, and then repetition and practice, reinforcing sound letter correspondence. Where do you see this happen early in the reading process? Well, you see this happen with sight words. And if you notice when it comes to reading, and I'm going to get into this later, when it comes to reading, a hybrid approach is used. You need sight words. You have the sight words. You also sound out the words. So you have sight words where you learn how to say these words because these words sound like this. But sight words are a hybrid approach. They're not phonetics, but it's not all immersion either. But you're immersed through the sight words. It is the perfect example of a hybrid approach because it's just not one or the other. Because sight words don't necessarily sound how they look, and some sight words do sound how they look. But you have to know the sight words and recognize them when you see them. So what are what are some of the criticisms of phonics? They say it makes reading mechanical. A kid can lack comprehension and context because they just know the words, but they don't know what the words mean. There can be a lot of monotony of repetitive drilling that may disengage the learner, which does happen in direct instruction. And then there's sometimes poor adaptation. There's a difficulty with irregular words and contextual nuances. These things happen. Now, what is the parallel in foreign language for direct instruction? I need another sip of coffee here. Remember, this isn't the most exciting coffee with Rhadi, but I think it's necessary from an educational standpoint so that people, they're not led astray. And they understand that these discussions have been had over and over again. And it just irks me and burns me up every time you try to have a discussion with one of these new eco people. And they always say, well, you don't really understand what eco is. You don't really understand what that. Well, your understanding is my man. My understanding on this isn't limited. This ain't no new shit. This shit has been done over and over again in different fields. It's just what you're doing now is just a fucking remix. That's it. It's R. Kelly remix, man. That's just all it is. So the parallel in foreign language education, when it comes to direct instruction, it would be the grammar translation method. In foreign language learning, direct instruction is often represented by what I just told you, the grammar translation method, where vocabulary and grammar rules are explicitly taught. You get translation accuracy, you get rule memorization, and you get structured vocabulary acquisition. You get a list of words where you memorize, You know, like in Spanish, you know, you get cafeteria, biblioteca, baño, you know, fregador. Like you just learn the words of the things that are inside the house, and then you learn how to put them in sentences. Now, what is the criticism of this approach? Well, you can end up lacking conversational skill. It, you're not really focused on reading and writing. You're just speaking, all right, and you're just saying the things. You can lack context. There could be a contextual deficiency where it's difficult to apply the things you learned in real life language application. And then the other knock, just like the other ones, is this: it's rigid. The learning is rigid. It's inflexible. And that's how direct instruction is. Direct instruction is sometimes it's just inflexible. Now let's look at the inquiry-based learning model as it applies to Judo and BJJ. All right. It encourages exploration, problem solving. Athletes experiment with techniques. They discover solutions and they adapt to movements. It allows creativity. It allows problem solving skills. It provides a deep understanding of movements and a deep understanding of some of the moves that have been acquired. And it provides some autonomy, some independent thinking and innovation on the mat. What are the drawbacks? Well, the learning curve is a little longer. The fundamentals take more time to develop. There's a lot of inconsistency, and technique execution may vary, leading to inefficiency. And there's a higher error rate. And one of the problems that we see when it comes to training athletes, especially those that are looking to become experts and are looking to compete at the highest levels, let's just say the Olympics, there's a chronological landscape that's available from the time that they're training until the Olympic trials. And that's the set amount of time. And they don't get another Olympics. Like, some people only get a few chances at the Olympics, really one, but most people just one, but a few chances at the Olympics in their lifetime. And you don't have time to deal in anything that has a high error rate or a long learning curve. You just can't do it. Now, what's the parallel in mathematics when it comes to the inquiry-based method? The parallel in mathematics is called the conceptual approach. In mathematics, inquiry-based learning is akin to conceptual learning, where students investigate mathematical ideas through exploration and problem solving. What do they get from that? Well, they get what's called discovery learning. They get to investigate patterns and relationships. They also develop flexible thinking. They can apply these concepts to novel situations. It's more word problem based. They get conceptual understanding of grasping the why behind the mathematical operations. Now, here's the criticism to conceptual learning. Slow mastery. Takes longer to develop procedural fluency. There's inconsistency. Students may develop varied and inefficient strategies, something that works well on one level of math, but doesn't transfer to the next level of math, instead of having a standard way of doing things. Then there's a higher cognitive load on the learner. It demands more from the learner, especially at the foundational stages. Now, what is this parallel in language arts? The parallel in language arts is the whole language approach. The whole language approach encourages immersion and contextual reading rather than isolated phonetic drills. It provides meaning-based learning, reading for comprehension and fluency, not just reading to read. It provides natural language acquisition, context-driven vocabulary development, and you get some literary exploration, emphasis on storytelling and critical thinking. And it also allows the student to pick some of the literature that they want to read, not what's necessarily given to them, which creates a higher level of interest to the reader or the practitioner. Now, here's the criticism of the whole language approach. It's inconsistent in skill acquisition. And some learners do struggle without structured phonetic support. There's difficulty with complex words because there's a lack of decoding. And this lack of decoding may hinder progression later on down the line. And then you have variable results. And the one thing as a scientist, man, I want things to be repeatable. A lot of the success of the whole language approach heavily depends on the learner's background and exposure. And what we saw in the realm of education is that the whole language approach worked very well from people with a high SCS, meaning those people who come from high socioeconomic status or high socioeconomic backgrounds, because in those houses, they're immersed in a different language pattern than the people who come from a low SCS. Now, what is the parallel in foreign language education? The parallel in foreign language is called the immersion method. Like when you just, take off, go to Russia, and you're going to learn Russian. Now, the immersion method in language learning promotes learning through exposure and conversation rather than structured grammar lessons. This provides an opportunity for natural fluency, mimicking how native speakers acquire the language. You use some form of what we would call echolalia. You hear things and then you repeat them back. You have contextual understanding. You develop your vocabulary through immersion. You have conversational skills and real-world application of the language skills. But the criticism of this method is there's grammar gaps. There's a lack of systemic rule-based learning. There's slow grammar mastery. Okay, the practitioner is going to struggle with reading and writing in the formal usage of the language. There's also a high cognitive demand on the learner, but they can feel overwhelmed without any foundational grammar support. Now, what's the key here? The key is to find the balance, which is a hybrid approach. The most effective approach in all of these fields, in jiu-jitsu, in math, in foreign language, in language arts, is a balanced approach of structure with exploration. I think the best thing to do is combine the methods. Introduce fundamental skills through direct instruction. Then transition to inquiry-based learning for deeper understanding and application. Utilize progressive integration. Start with structured learning and gradually increase autonomy as proficiency builds. And then create situational adaptation. Adapt teaching methods based upon the learner's skill levels and goals. And when it comes to the pedagogical side, the learner's goals will be dictated mostly by the parents. Find out what the parents want to get accomplished, and then utilize the best combination of the two modalities to best suit the learner. Direct instruction and inquiry-based learning represent two sides of a pedagogical spectrum, okay? Whether in judo, BJJ, mathematics, language arts, foreign language, or any realm of education, whether it's teaching and learning which exists, the key to success is dynamic integration, hybridization. Leveraging the strengths of both approaches will result in a well-rounded, proficient, and adaptable learner. BJJ, man, is just going through this phase right now. Other disciplines have debated it for years, okay? By appreciating the merits and limitations of each method, educators and coaches can create comprehensive and flexible training programs that address foundational accuracy while fostering creativity and problem-solving skills. As I said before, and as I say now, it's not a question of either or. It's the right mix of and. You use this method and you use the other one. This is Dr. Ferguson. Have a super fantastic day. Remember that I love you, but God loves you best. And please, please, please visit www.judoislife.net and provide me a little bit of support by getting my book, my free book, Judo is Life, today. Take care.
You are getting ready to listen to the voice of Dr. Rhadi Ferguson, 2004 Olympian, 4-time national judo champion, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, author, speaker, and coach.